Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sun and the moon same time. For the moon it's like midday. The sun. It's actually nicely described in Govinda Lilamrita how when the sun and the moon are up together, the different moods and pastime. Alright, so today we're going to continue briefly from when we left off yesterday. We were talking about Mantramaya Upasana, right? And Swarasiki Upasana. This is actually a good platform for us to discuss before going deeply into Vilapa Kusumanjali. It's a good foundation. Prabhuji also talked a little bit about Mantramaya Upasana yesterday. But there are different kinds of Mantramaya Upasana. One is with Vaidhi Bhakti and one is with Rag Bhakti. In Vaidhi Bhakti it means you're just chanting the mantras, ringing bells, waving ghee lamp and incense and chamara without so much love and desire to follow the Brijabasis, just as an ordinary kind of worship that you have to do. And you're afraid of the results of not doing bhakti, going to hell and things like that. So it's not done with rag, but Mantramaya Upasana we're doing it following the footsteps of the Braja Gopis themselves, trying to develop this love that they have, remembering them, praying to them, meditating upon them, and then that Mantramaya Upasana, by performing it steadily, it will transform into Swarasiki Upasana, which is our real aim, which means a flow of pastimes in our mind, like a reel of pictures or like a movie. You don't have to then think, oh, then what happened, then what happened. Like when you're watching a movie, you don't have to say what's going to you don't have to think of what's going to happen and then create it. It just happens automatically and you're just the viewer. So Swarasiki Upasana comes to this state where simply when you're chanting or even when you're not chanting, then the flow of Krishna's pastimes appears in your heart and mind, and it's at that time more rich. Like when you watch a movie, it's only for your sense of sight. You may see, think there's something else being stimulated, the other senses, sound, of course, sight and sound, but what about taste? What about smell? What about touch? So when you're watching a movie, it's just like, okay, mostly sight and sound. But you don't have to think about, okay, this will happen next. You don't have to create it in your mind. You don't have to imagine it. It becomes automatic. So when we enter Swarasiki Upasana, the flow of Krishna's pastimes will come automatically like a river in our heart and mind. But those pastimes will be rich with all senses. All the senses will be engaged. Touch, smell, scent, hearing, sight, taste, everything. So to get to that stage, we have to follow the process of Mantramaya Upasana. That's the first stage. And we have to engage in Manasi Seva, which means meditating on these pastimes with a desire to serve in them. And meditating on the holy places in Braj where these pastimes occurred. That's actually first stage of Manasi Seva. You remember the pastime places. Why do we remember the pastime places? So that the pastimes themselves will enter our heart. We pray to those pastime places, to Govardhan, to Radhakund, Shamkund, to Manasi Ganga, Kusum Sarovar, Brindavan, Shringarvad, Banksivad, all the forests. We pray to these places, and also we go there physically and mentally. And when we go there mentally, we offer pranam to each place. Prabhuji says you should do it every day if you can. We'll discuss this more in another class. But we go there and we pray, we offer pranam, we offer some flowers or some offering. And that's how we gradually make relationship. And then when those pastime places give us mercy, then the pastimes automatically appear in our heart. That can become Swarasiki Upasana. So when we are meditating on those places, eventually it will just transform into the pastimes themselves. Like now when we meditate on these places, Govardhan, we have to think of Govardhan as it is now, with the rickshaws and the dogs and the monkeys and the cows, as it is now, and the different people, some people chewing tobacco and spitting. Govardhan is transcendental, but we are covered over by Maya still. This covering of Maya is there. So we pray, Kripa Kodi Maya Jal Utai Jakon Aki Deki Subishal Chinmay Bhavan. Maya, please remove this covering of illusion and ignorance and lust, material lust from my eyes, so that I can really see the transcendental abode of Braj. So we meditate on these pastimes like that. And then gradually, by going to these places, even though we don't have an idea of the transcendental reality of Govardhan, what does Govardhan really look like in Braj, we can just get some semblance of a glimpse through hearing, through reading the scriptures. We can get some idea of what Govardhan really looks like, or what Vrindavan really looks like. In Govinda Lila Mrita, Krishna Bhavanamrita, it describes Vrindavan, it describes Govardhan, so we can get some idea. But now we just kind of try to imagine it. And that imagination, it's not exactly the real thing. But it's not a problem, it's not an impediment, it's a stepping stone. We have to engage the mind somehow in thinking about the pastime places, and then the pastimes will come in the heart. We want to enter into Lila. Our goal in this process is to enter into Krishna Lila. Not just Nam, Rupa or Guna. We chant Krishna's Nam with desire to enter into Krishna Lila too. And first we have to meditate on the Lila Stali, the pastime places, and then the pastimes themselves will appear in our hearts, and then they will go on one after another. Because when you see one of these pastimes, immediately you'll want to see another one, and then just the desire will come, oh, about this sweet pastime, and then that pastime will flow in the heart. So I wanted to do today like a guided meditation on this pastime of Krishna entering the forest, because this verse we learned, Badha Pitam Natavara, is very sweet, but it goes along with 20 verses of Venu-gita. And it's very interesting because in the Venu-gita itself, the gopis are seeing these pastimes from a distance actually, and describing them all. It's like Swarasiki Upasana, but on the highest Nityasiddha level. The way the gopis are describing Venu-gita, they're not there directly seeing Krishna. They're in their rooms, together talking. But they hear the sound of Krishna's flute, and then immediately they begin to describe them. So we'll just do a brief overview, and we can do it like a meditation. So we can follow this kind of process that we like. Generally with guided meditation, you close your eyes and you try to imagine the pastime. Generally, see, we think now this is imagination, but now we're thinking about it as if imagining it, but it is actually real. We're limited by our mind and senses. It said, Atashi Krishna Namadi na bhaved grayam indriya sevan mukhi jivado swayam eva spurattida. Rupa Goswami says, Atashi Krishna Namadi, that real, pure Krishna Nam has not appeared in our tongues. Real Krishna Lila has not appeared in our hearts and minds, because our senses are material, and it cannot come in the material senses. But when we become Seva Unmukh, inclined towards service and always engaged in Krishna Seva, then Swayameva Spuratida automatically will spontaneously appear. So it said, Iha yasya herir dasya karmana manasagira nikila svapya sartu jivan mukta sa uchite. At that point we become jivan mukta, liberated even while living. We don't have to think that liberation will come after we die or a long time after. Even while we're living, we become liberated when we engage and offer everything in Krishna Seva. Iha yasya harir yasya karmana, our actions, manasa, our mind, our speech. Nikilas Iha yasya harir dasya in Hari dasya. So how do we do that? We remember these places and we offer service. That's why it's very important to remember that Seva is the basis. If we're not doing Seva, then we can never enter this Krishna Lila. In Braj, everyone is engaged in Seva. The gopis, so many kinds of Seva, churning the milk, cooking, cleaning. Mother Yashoda, Krishna himself is grazing the cows, milking the cows, caring for the cows. Everyone is engaged in Seva. So the way to enter this Leela is ultimately Seva, but that's why we call it Manasi Seva. So we serve physically, Karmana Manasagira, with your actions, which means with your physical senses, serve. But also with your mind you should serve, both. And then also with your speech, you should not speak about mundane things, instead engage your speech in Krishna Kirtan and Harikatha. Then you can become liberated even while in this body, meaning your body will be here, but your heart and your soul will already be liberated. And there's just like a short barrier between you becoming completely free and in Krishna's Lila itself. Like Narad Muni, when he left home, he had received a mantra from the sages, and he performed mantra mayupasana. For years, for like months and months and months and years, he was only chanting this mantra that was given by the sages at the time of Chatumasya. It's a long story, so we know the story. He received this mantra, and he took their prasad remnants, and he chanted these mantras, and then a detachment arose in his heart, and his mother passed on very quickly, was bitten by the serpent of time, and he went and he was chanting mantra mayupasana. And then by that mantra mayupasana, it became Shuddhanam, and he had darshan of Krishna, darshan of Narayan, for a moment, and that it filled him with ecstasy. Once you see Krishna or Narayan, you become filled with bhav. But then the Lord disappeared again, and he began to weep and cry, and then the Lord appeared in the sound form, and he said, now, until you give up this present body, you will not be able to see me again. But now you are as if liberated, and I want you to go everywhere and only chant and do kirtan, only be engaged in like Hari Kirtan, Hari Gatha. And when you leave this body, you'll get a transcendental body. But he had seen darshan of the Lord, and it said at that point he was Jivan Mukta. And when he gave up that body, it said that it was like two strikes of lightning occurring at the same time. Like in the sky, if you have the clouds crashing with each other, then if two strikes of lightning happen at the same time, then it was like he gave up his one body and got a transcendental body without any pain, without any discomfort. Like normally when you die, it's quite painful and you're attached, but there was no pain, no discomfort, and immediately appeared in the transcendental form. So how? Because he was always engaging his karmana manasagira in kirtan, in bhakti, in seva, therefore he was already liberated. So we're trying to follow this kind of process. So we'll just go over these Venu-gita pastime, and we'll try to meditate upon it and serve it. So it said that, how does it start? Sukadeva Goswami is describing to Parikshit Maharaj how when Krishna is going to enter into the forest, what time is it now? This is the autumn season. This is before, because Venu-gita is Purva Rag, before Ras Lila. The gopis feel love for Krishna before having directly met with him, and there's a pull of attraction towards Krishna. So when Krishna begins to enter the forest, it said he is with Baladev, with the Sakas. The lakes and ponds are full of clear water. The breeze is very gently blowing and carrying the fragrance of all the flowers in the forest of Vrindavan. So now we think about these pastimes and we try to imagine it, like in guided meditation. You can even close your eyes and try to imagine the scene. We try to imagine the scene. And when we chant Harinam, we can imagine this scene, and gradually it will become more and more rich. And now we are thinking, oh, the breeze is blowing in Vrindavan as Krishna enters the forest and is carrying the fragrance of all the different types of flowers, the champak flowers. And when we serve in this world, we can get some semblance of an idea what it's like when we offer a garland to Krishna of champak flowers, and afterwards we take his prasad, how fragrant are those champak flowers. So we can imagine this smell of champak flowers gently coming along the breeze as Krishna. And then there's roses, lotuses, if you smell the lotus flowers, or the malati flowers, these small white jasmine flowers and other flowers. That fragrance is intoxicating already. So when you meditate upon these pastimes, this is real, these pastimes are actually happening. But what we are trying to do is get to the point where they appear spontaneously to us when our senses have become purified, and we purify them by the process of karmana manasagira. We engage our senses, we engage our mind, we engage our speech, anukulyena krishna anusilanam, constantly like a stream of honey in this process. Then it will become completely real. At that point, it's not at all imagination. Our body is like a vessel for Krishna Lila at that time, and within our body and minds, Krishna Lila is flowing like a current of electricity. So then the breeze is blowing, and the smell of all the flowers and the forest is in the air, and also the weather. This is the sense of touch. You can feel the sense of touch. It's very crisp and clean and cool. It's not hot now. The summer has passed. Generally the autumn season is one of the most enjoyable seasons for the senses, because it's very cool and fresh, and also after the summer season when it was very hot, now you're feeling very cool. Spring is also very special because in the winter it's very cold, and then when it's spring it's just warming up, and it's also very fresh. So anyhow, the Venu-gita is going on during the autumn season. And then Krishna's entering the forest, and the breeze is flowing with the scent of the flowers and the trees, and then the sound of all the birds is very melodious. It's said that the peacocks are singing, the parrots, the cuckoo birds, and all in this way they're creating a beautiful atmosphere of music. And then also the sakas are playing on the buffalo horns, the bugles, the shenai, and Krishna then, as he's going to the forest, Krishna begins to play on his flute. And so the sound of Krishna's flute permeates throughout Braj and fills everyone, the non-moving and moving entities, with transcendental bliss. So the gopis are in their homes. They want to come out and see Krishna, but there's some impediment because of the Parakiya Ras. They cannot directly go and meet with Krishna, but they want to, especially when they hear the sound of Krishna's flute and they haven't directly met with him yet. This is description of Venu-gita in this world, Boma Vrindavan, and that time the gopis have not met with Krishna, so they feel this Purva Rag, powerful pull of attraction towards Krishna, but externally, because of the social restrictions, they cannot go in front of Krishna, they cannot embrace Krishna. So they began to sit in their rooms together, and they began to feel a desire to speak about the pastimes of Krishna entering the forest and his pastimes in the forest. So it's said that they sit down, the gopis sit down and begin to want to reveal their hearts to one another. In the Gita it said, Katha yanti tushanti saramanti cha, that the devotees always feel bliss when speaking the pastimes of Krishna. So the gopis, as the topmost devotees, they sit down and they begin to speak Krishna Lila with one another. But as they're speaking, the sound of Krishna's flute overpowers them with transcendental ecstasy, and they become as if stunned and they can no longer speak. Just as they're about to start speaking about Krishna Lila entering the forest, the flute sound makes them fall as if senseless, means they go into an internal state of ecstasy and become as if stunned. And then they're meditating upon the pastime of Krishna entering the forest. So the first verse that we learned of Venu-gita, which is number 5, the first 2 verses description by Sukadev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, and the second also. And then he starts describing the scene. And he says, as Krishna's entering and it's very autumn season and the flowers are blowing, then the gopis are sitting in their rooms or in their courtyards together in their groups. And they began to meditate on this pastime, and they began to want to speak, but then they hear the sound of the flute and they become stunned in ecstasy. And then in their minds, they began to see that pastime. So we're trying to follow the footsteps of the gopis, that we can be sitting here, but our minds can be on those pastimes. It's said once Srila Gurudev met with Swami Prabhupada in Krishna Balaram, Vrindavan, just here, in the morning time, that Swami Maharaj would often send a car to Mathura to pick up Gurudev, because he would love to have his darshan and to meet with him. So Gurudev came in the morning and they spoke on Shikshastakam, and many other Goswamis and Pandits were there. Gurudev spoke on Shikshastakam, and then he spoke on Krishna Lila. And it said as Gurudev spoke on Krishna Lila, it was about 8:30 at that time, because he'd been speaking for some time, and then it said that the sounds of Krishna going to the forest actually entered that place, the Bhajan Kutir. And the general people having darshan thought, oh, there's some musical party going on or some birds singing outside. But it was so sweet. And there's like, we've never heard any kind of musical band like that. Because why? Like blowing the horns and playing the flute and also all the birds chirping and singing. And that sound entered into the Bhajan Kutir because the Mahabhagavats are there and they're speaking on these pastimes, and so the pastimes manifest also. Also it's Vrindavan, the pastimes are always going on. And it said, then they began kirtan, and Gurudev and Swami Prabhupada were both weeping incessantly. And all the people having darshan also began weeping, and they could not understand what is this feeling that has come in our heart, that has made us as if mad. What is this sweetness? So at that point, they could not understand completely, but still, by having that association of this Mahabhagavats, this created an impression in their heart that will last them forever. and will carry them forward in Braja Bhakti. So this shows these pastimes are not just imagination, they are real. But we have to start to meditate upon them. We have to start somewhere. Now for us, they're not completely real, but we have to start by chanting and meditating on them, and by hearing Harikatha and serving, and then they'll become more and more and more real. Now we can give a very basic description. But when we see these and are present in them, then it said, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya braja lok anusarata. You should serve with your sadhaka body while internally meditating upon your service in Braj. We don't artificially do that. Instead, we meditate on going to the pastime places and praying to them and serving them. And when they're merciful with us, then we can actually realize our position in our service. It said, however, though, that Ratri Dine Krishna Chintan, day and night we should only be thinking about Krishna and Krishna Lila and Braja Lila. Forgetting all material identification. I am a man, I am a woman, I am from this country or that country. No, I am only Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalyo Dasa Dasa Anudasa. This is our meditation. What is our meditation? I am not a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Naham Vipro, Napi Varna, Nacha Vanashta Gitirva. I am not a Vaishya, Shudra, I am not a Brahmin, Kshatriya, I am not a Grihasta, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, Brahmachari. These are all material titles. What am I? Only the servant of the servant of the servant of that Krishna who is the beloved of the gopis. When we realize and when we become fixed in this attitude, then we can really actually realize these pastimes. But so there's two things. We must perform seva, and we must get rid of material identification and material ideas. These are called material designations. Sarva upadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchite. Bhakti means seva performed with purified senses, free of material designation. So if we are trying to follow this process, but we're missing out on one part of the equation, then we won't get the result we want. So as long as we continue to think, I am a man or woman in this world, I am from this country, that country, I have this idea or that idea, this attachment and affiliation or that one, then we'll remain blocked from entering this Lila. When we can get rid of all these ideas, Chodata Purusha Abhiman, Kinkari Hoilo, Gokulakan. I give up all kind of Purusha Abhiman, which means any kind of material ego, false ego. This Purusha Abhiman means material ahankar. I am this, I am that. Whether man or woman, Purush Bhav means I am thinking that I am this body and I'm trying to enjoy and exploit others for the satisfaction of my senses. That is Purusha Abhiman. So we give up that Purusha Abhiman and we realize I am only the servant of the Krishna who is the master of the gopis. Not the servant, the servant of the servant of the servant. And then I can enter these Leelas by service. So we'll go back to the pastime. So the gopis, they begin meditating on Krishna Leela. And they see this scene of Krishna entering the forest in their heart and in their minds while they're stunned in ecstasy. They simply hear the sound of Krishna's flute and the gopis become stunned in ecstasy and they cannot speak. And while they're in that state, they realize this scene. What is that? That first verse. This is the verse that is meditated upon by the gopis. That's why of the Venu-gita verses, this is one of the most special. There's a few other ones that we'll definitely learn. And ultimately we'll try to learn them all. But we can now sing this verse and then we'll describe it and realize that this is not us speaking this. This is the gopis. They're not even speaking it. They're realizing it, this pastime in their heart. So this verse. Badhapidam natavara vapu karnayor karnikaram bibradvasa kanakakapisam vajayantim chamalam ran venu radara sudaya purayan gopa brinder brindaranyam swapadaramanam pravishad kita kirtihi. So the gopis are realizing this scene in their hearts. What is that? As Krishna is going first, the gopis see Krishna's beautiful face because they are most attracted to his sweet, beautiful face. So first, the sequence of this verse is how the gopis are perceiving Krishna Lila in their rooms while stunned in ecstasy. First they see the peacock feather on Krishna's turban. Why? Because the peacock feather is actually the emblem of Srimati Radhika. Why does Krishna always keep the peacock feather on his head, on his crown? Because inside the peacock feather there is the letters Radha. If you look at the peacock feather, every peacock feather, we can bring it next time and show you how the shape is there. Because in Hindi it's like this. Ra, right? And then Dha, long A also, Radha or Radhe. And in the peacock feather Radha, there's the D shape, the Da shape, and also the Ra shape is there. So Krishna, whenever he sees this peacock feather, he thinks of Radharani. And therefore he always keeps it on his head, because he's showing ultimately Radharani is supreme. That Krishna, people think Ishvara Parama Krishna, but Krishna himself is always keeping the peacock feather, which is the name of Radharani, on his head. So first the gopis see the peacock feather. Then they see the flower turban, the flower crown. So they see Barha Ahapidam. The gopis see Krishna's flower crown. And then they see, then they're kind of zooming out a little bit. Barha Ahapidam Natavara Varnayor Karnikaram. Then they see the Karnikara flower in his ear, the yellowish Karnikara flower. Then they see Bibradvasa Kanakakapisam Vajanti Mala. They see his pitambar, his yellowish pitambar and his dhoti. And then they see the Vajanti Mala swinging, made of 5 kinds of flowers and hanging down to his knees. Then Kanakakapisam Vajanti Randaran Venu. Then they are seeing that Krishna is playing that flute. He's filling the flute with that nectar of his lips. Randaran Venu Adara Sudaya Purayan Gopa Brinder. And in this way he is entering the forest. Then they see the whole forest. And Krishna is entering the forest with the sakas. The sakas are singing Krishna's glories. Gita Kirtihi. And Vrindavan is experiencing ecstasy. Swapada Ramanam Pravisad Gita. The forest of Vrindavan, and everyone in Vrindavan is feeling ecstasy, feeling the touch of Krishna on his body, and also hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. So this is the first scene of Venu-gita. And we meditate on this scene, we're meditating on what the gopis are meditating on. It's not something that we manufacture. If we follow this, now we follow the details given there in that verse, Badha Pidam Natavara. And we just stick to those details and we meditate more and more, and then gradually the rest will begin to manifest. So then we can hear what happens next. So the gopis meditating on this scene, then after some time, they come back into their external Bharyadasa, external consciousness, and then they begin to describe the pastime. So first they describe how Krishna is so attractive. He appears like a dancer performing on a stage. That Krishna is not just walking, but he is so graceful and elegant that as he is walking, it appears like he is dancing very beautifully, like a dancer. And he is going with Baladev and with the Sakas, entering the forest. And then they describe how everyone experiences ecstasy in different ways. Vrindaranyam Swapada Ramanam Pravisad. When Krishna enters, everything in Vrindavan becomes filled with Ramana, bliss. So they describe how the breeze is blowing like we heard. Then they describe how, for example, trying to remember the order. They say that the birds and the peacocks, seeing Krishna, they become stunned with ecstasy. They say that the birds are like sages. They say they are not ordinary people. All the birds are sitting on the branches of the trees and also stunned in ecstasy, not moving, just hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. Actually, the gopis first describe Krishna's flute. This is the order, because they say this flute has stolen away our hearts. So they say this flute has stolen away our hearts, and not only our hearts, but everyone in Braj has become mad in ecstasy hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. So they say that, look at the deer. They say that they glorify the deer, and they say the deer have no inhibition. Their husbands, the stags, are encouraging them and saying, we're protecting you, because the deer hear the sound of Krishna's flute and they also become stunned in ecstasy. And then they're like, deer are generally, like these kind of animals, are very timid and afraid that any time some person may attack me, or some beast may come and some predator may come and attack me. But the deer is hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. They don't have any fear. They're only intoxicated in the sound of Krishna's flute, even though there's nothing to fear in Braj. But then the stags, their husbands, are encouraging the deer, and they say, yes, go to Krishna. This is the gopis' mood. So the gopis say, oh, how unfortunate we are, and how fortunate the deer are, that the deer have no inhibition to going and seeing Krishna. They're instead encouraged and helped and protected. But we, because of we are now here as gopis, ladies, we cannot go and meet with Krishna directly. Our fathers and mothers and brothers will keep us from that. So they feel some longing now. And they say, what to speak of the deer? Also look at the cows. They say the cows, they stop chewing grass when they hear the sound of Krishna's flute. Even the grass will be in their mouth, but they will stop chewing. And they just cup up their ears. It said the ears will why do the cows have such nice big ears? So that they can drink the sound of Krishna's flute, like a nectar. So the cows stop chewing grass, and with their ears they are drinking the sound of Krishna's flute. And the calves, they stop, when they hear the sound of Krishna's flute, they stop drinking milk. Even though their mouths may be on the udder of their mothers, they will stop drinking the milk, and they will also just become intoxicated by the sound of Krishna's flute. And the gopis say, then look at the birds. The birds are sitting on the trees, and they're not ordinary people. The birds are also great sages. And the sages are also there meditating on Krishna Lila, and they also serve. The birds will collect fruits from the trees, or cut the fruits and bring them down, or bring leaves also, Kishalaya. So they're also great sages. And then they say, look at the rivers. The rivers, who are generally flowing, they become as if they begin to form whirlpools in ecstasy, spinning around in circles very fast. And there are many, many whirlpools in Jamuna then. And what do they do with these whirlpools? They collect lotus flowers, and then they offer them up on their banks as offerings to Krishna. And as Krishna walks by next to the Jamuna stops flowing normally because she is stunned in ecstasy. It's said that hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, what is normally moving becomes non-moving, stunned. So the deer, the cows, the calves, the birds, normally they like to move around. They're the moving entities. But hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, they become stunned in ecstasy, and they sit like sages engaged in meditation, hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. And those things which are static, which are non-moving, they begin to move. So it's said that the trees began to drip honey in streams from their branches. And the gopis say that the trees feel ecstasy. Why? Because first the gopis describe Krishna's flute. They say, how fortunate is this flute? What austerities did this flute perform in its past life, that now, even though it is dry, it has that fortune of relishing the nectar of Krishna's lips, that is really should be our property. The gopis say that this nectar of Krishna's lips should be ours. It should be our property. But this flute now is, even though it's dry and just bamboo, it's drinking all of this nectar. So they feel some kind of jealousy towards the flute. But also they are honoring the flute. And they say all the trees in Vrindavan feel like they are the elders, or like the family members of the flute. And they feel so much happiness that, look, our own jat, someone in our caste, our own relative is now with Krishna, always drinking the flute sound of Krishna, always drinking Krishna's adara sudha, the nectar of Krishna's lips. And so seeing this, the trees also experienced ecstasy, and they began to drip streams of honey from their branches. And this stream of honey is bathing, like doing abhishek of Vrindavan. Not just honey, but nectar. Like different kinds of trees, they all have some ras. And they gently, like date gur is one kind of ras. Tal gur, one kind of ras. And the flowers, all flowers have some nectar. Where does honey come from? Honey comes from the flowers. The bees go and collect the nectar from the flowers, and they afterwards transform that into honey. And also there are honeycombs in the trees, so those honeycombs are also dripping. The gopis then say, after they describe the trees, and they say, look at the clouds. The clouds have formed a canopy over Krishna because they don't want him to feel any heat of summer. But also they are attracted so much to Krishna, so they want to come as close to Krishna as possible. So they cannot come directly to Krishna because they're clouds. So what do? They come and they form a canopy like an umbrella over Krishna. And so the gopis say the clouds are filling up the sky of Vrindavan like a beautiful canopy. But they want to be closer to Krishna, and they also want to have a chance to serve Krishna. So it says that they began to shower a very thin mist like rain. Like when you're out in the summertime, if it's like a sunny day, if there's a very gentle pouring of rain, like mist, very fine drops, it's considered to be very, very auspicious, especially if it's like the sun is still out and there's some clouds raining. It's the most auspicious time of day, actually. So the clouds begin to rain a very fine mist, and it said that this drops of rain, which are very fine, appear like white flowers cascading upon Krishna and the Sakas. So the gopis describe this scene, saying, oh, look at the clouds who are filled with ecstasy, and they're showering down a fine mist of rain, which appears like white flowers, like jasmine flowers or other flowers, raining upon Sri Krishna. So then the gopis say, they describe the cows, they describe the deer, they describe the birds, then they describe the Pulinda Kanyas. They say, look at the position of the Pulinda Kanyas. They are so glorious. They have so much love for Krishna. Even they are just living in the forest as simple girls. When they see the footprints of Krishna in the forest, which are reddish like kumkum, then they take this dust from the forest upon their bodies. They smear it upon their chests, and then they experience transcendental ecstasy. How fortunate are those Pulinda girls? Even though the gopis, they're so absorbed in their love for Krishna that they're not even thinking that this kumkum that they're seeing in the footprints is actually from the gopis. Actually, in Transcendental Braj, every day is like a new day. It's always ever fresh experience of pastimes with Krishna. So they can always feel this purva rag, that they have never met with Krishna. But then when they meet with Krishna, like sometimes everything will be arranged by Yoga Maya, by Krishna's pastime potency, in a way that facilitates further their enhancement of their ras and their love with Krishna. So sometimes the gopis, even though they've met with Krishna many times, they feel they've never met with Krishna. And then they experience this attraction for Krishna, this purva rag. And so they see the Pulinda Kanyas, they're taking this kumkum and smearing on their body. And where does the kumkum come from? When Krishna is meeting with the gopis in the kunj, then the gopis place Krishna's feet upon their chests, and their chests are smeared with this reddish kumkum, which represents their anurag. And then when Krishna walks in this forest, swapada ramanam, then the forest becomes covered with the footprints of Krishna, and they have all his marks of all the symbols on his feet, and they're reddish color. When the gopis are searching for Krishna at Gopi-gita, before Gopi-gita, when he leaves from the Ras dance, they find these footprints, and they also follow them. So the Pulinda girls take this kumkum and smear it on their bodies. So the gopis glorify the Pulinda girls. They glorify them and say how fortunate they are that they are taking this and experiencing ecstasy. And actually describe that Radharani describes this verse, and she was witnessing this pastime. In Bhagavatam, everything is hidden, so they don't directly say which verses are sung by Radharani. We know the Brahmar Gita is by Radharani only. But even that, her name is not directly given, but the Goswamis have revealed that. But also in Venu-gita and Gopi-gita, some of the verses are from Srimati Radharani. So she is glorifying the Pulinda girls, and it said that when Radharani witnessed these Pulinda girls taking this kumkum, by her glance of mercy, their lives were successful actually. That she saw that they have this rag for Krishna, love for Krishna, and therefore Radhika's heart melted for them, and she gave them her kripa kataksha, her glance of mercy. So then Srimati Radhika also sings this verse, Hantraya Madra Avala Haridasa Varya Yadrama Krishna Charana Sparsa Pramoda, that she glorifies Giriraj Govardhan. In the end, she glorifies Giriraj Govardhan because Krishna is going to Govardhan. And she glorifies Giriraj that he is Haridasa Varya, he is the greatest of all the servants of Hari. He is providing all green grass for the cows, he's providing cooling ponds and lakes, waterfalls, fresh fruits and flowers. Giriraj is doing everything, caves to play in, past many places. So actually they're saying Giriraj provides everything for the Brajbasis. So in the end, Radhika glorifies Giriraj Govardhan, and then she describes how Krishna is playing with the cows and the calves and the sakas. So in this way, this is a very basic preliminary glimpse of a description of this Venu-gita, which is describing Krishna as playing his flute as he enters the forest of Vrindavan. So we want to meditate on these pastimes when we're chanting Harinam, and don't think this is some kind of like impropriety, that this is not bona fide. This is our process, that we meditate on these pastimes, and gradually this will become perfected by this process. And just finally, to conclude, I want to tell this thing is that some people, we were talking about this a little bit before, some people say Swami Prabhupada is in Sakya Ras, but our Gurudev always said he is in Madhurya Ras, he is one of the gopis. So one of the arguments they say is in one of his poems, he was writing in such a way that it appeared like he was desiring to be in the forest with Krishna like one of the cowherd boys. He was praying, oh, when will we be able to go in the forest and enter the forest with Krishna. So people who don't have such refined vision think, oh, this is praying for Sakya Ras. But really, if we read Venu-gita, we can understand that the gopis are themselves, they desire completely to be there with Krishna. They say that look how the deers are more fortunate than us. The deer are more fortunate than us because they're able to go and be with Krishna as he enters the forest. When Krishna is running into the forest, then the deer are there, the peacocks and the birds and the monkeys and the cows and the calves, they're all going with Krishna. So the gopis think the deer are more fortunate than us because they're going to the forest. But the gopis don't, at the same time, they don't become deer, even though they sometimes desire, like, oh, if we were just like the deer, then we would be there with Krishna. But they don't become a deer. They're the gopis. So the Vaishnavas may sometimes pray like this, and also sometimes the gopis will take on the cloth of a saka. They'll dress like a saka so that they can play in those pastimes without any people noticing or without anyone saying anything. So the gopis sometimes they'll dress just like a saka. They'll tie a cloth around their chest and dress with a dhoti and a kurta and a chadar, and they'll enter the forest with Krishna like a saka. Because it said in Madhurya Ras, all the other rasas are present. Because Madhurya Ras is the topmost ras. Rupa Goswami describes like in the earth, the elements of water, fire, air, and ether are present. So in the 5 rasas, Madhurya Rasa is topmost. And Santa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya Ras are all present within Madhurya Ras. So it's not contrary to it's not Rasa Bas to have this Sakya Ras mood sometimes arise. Okay, so the gopis, and then they say sometimes they're glorifying the flute as more fortunate, they're glorifying the Pulinda girls. So sometimes these moods may come in the Vaishnavas, but ultimately the Sthai Bhav is fixed. Their eternal ras with Krishna and their form, Swarup, that is accompanying that ras is always fixed. It will not change, even though sometimes they may adopt a different mood or another. Okay, so we'll stop here today. And we'll go further into Vilap Kusumanjali tomorrow. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyacha pritanang pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Yes. This was half hour.
Last 2 days, we have to meditate on Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu Bhakta, the first one, and after we do Radha Krishna Bhakta. I don't understand now.
Yes, there's so much time in the day, 24 hours. 12 hours, remember Gaur, 12 hours Krishna. When you do it, best time to do Manasi Seva is in the morning. So that's why we wake up at Brahma Muhurta. Because at that time, when it's 9 or 10, 11, the time is more like Rajagun, the mode of passion, and people are out about working. So it's sometimes hard to meditate. If you're like Prabhuji, while you're cooking, you're meditating on your service in Nandagaon in the kitchen with Radharani. So actually there's no obstacle to meditation. While you're doing anything, you should be meditating. But the best time is Brahma Muhurta. And at that time when you wake, first you meditate on Gaur Lila, and Gaur Astakali Lila, and you go to all the places in Gaur Mandal. First you go to the Ganga, you bathe in the Ganga, offer pranam to the Ganga, arti to the Ganga, bathe there. Then you go to all the islands and all the places in your mind. So you can read Navadvip Parikrama book and see the pictures or go there and learn all these places. And then in the mind, very quickly it can be done. Why? The mind is very fast. There's not like you have to get in the bus or you have to walk to the next place. You go to each place and then by the power of the mind you can very quickly go to the next place and the next place. So first you do Gaur Mandal Parikrama and bathe in the Ganga. Then you do Puri Parikrama where Mahaprabhu's pastimes are in Sannyas Lila. You bathe in the ocean, you see Jagannath. You go to Sweta Ganga, you go to Gambhira, you go to Siddha Bakul. You go to all these places, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house, Jagannatha Pandit, Advaitacharya's place where he stayed there. Then you go to Braj. We can't discuss this now, it'll take too long, but Gaur Mandal, Kshetra Mandal and Braj Mandal are all connected. It's like the 3 dhams. And without taking shelter of these 3 dhams, you can't get perfection. So after going to Gaur Dham and Jagannath Puri, then you go to Braj Dham and meditate on Krishna Lila. And you can do that when you're chanting Harinam, when you're on Parikrama, you can do that. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.